second film, which is included with this Criterion Collection release, is described as being from the year 1971, and this is from the filmmaker artist Kira Muratova. This is directed by Kira Muratova, and this is written by Natalia Ryazantsev, and this stars, among others, Zinaida Sharko and Oleg Vladimirsky. And the name of this work is, and once again, please pardon me for my very terrible pronunciation, but I hope you can forgive me, Dolgi Provodi, or as it's known in English, The Long Farewell. So this is the second of the two features directed by Kira Muratova that's included with this Criterion release. And my goodness, here we have another astounding, epic, intimate film. And we have, again, so many things that are balanced upon. So many different, say, facets, both macro writ large and also very intimate personal, the macro and the micro that seeming to be balanced upon or teetering upon or perhaps linked to a core group of characters, much like how a number of different differing facets were balanced upon the shoulders of a core group of characters in brief encounters. The same could be said, or something similar could be said, that is operating here in this film, The Long Farewell. And this time we have another maybe duo or trio or duo of sorts. And we have here the family unit or the family dynamic, but it's expressed in this very intimate way, and characters that have differing perspectives. My goodness, there are differing perspectives that are at play here that are cross-generational, or perhaps that are unable to traverse the generational rifts, that are also bound by, or perhaps highlighted by, expectations of roles of gender in society, expectations of, say, roles of, say, familial roles in society, also a type of coming of age story, adolescence into adulthood, and also maybe views that could be said to be associated with that, that have to do with sort of emerging feelings of maybe pubescent sexual awakening, and how that has to do with, or perhaps could be said to be part of a kind of coming of age, and not just say individually, but also in the context of viewing one's place or viewing one's role in a sort of a wider context or wider societal net. And so I'm speaking here of the relationship between mother and son, and also how the father, who has an interesting, maybe almost present absent like quality, is also affecting the mother son relationship here in this very, very deep way that has a lot of the daily moments of daily life. On the one hand, the moments of daily life of the son, moments of daily life of the mother, and how some details emerge in those snippets of daily life. Sometimes those snippets, by the way, in terms of a kind of bold, inventive style in the part of Muratova, sometimes those snippets are not just cross-sectioned or intersecting with each other in the varying perspectives, but also sometimes in terms of time and space, but also sometimes there's an interesting sense of cinematic repetition. Sometimes action can be seen to be repeated, and sometimes from the same vantage point, often, or sometimes also from a different vantage point. So this is a film that is experimenting with time, also focusing in on certain moments that might seem almost throwaway or almost off the cuff, in socializing aspects in nature. Sometimes there are these grand gatherings and coming-togethers and parties where the mother is involved and the son is involved, and sometimes both. And there are sometimes these moments of quiet intimacy. And I mentioned the coming-of-age story of the young son who is growing up, and not not just his feelings about his future, but also his feelings of sexual awakening and attraction. This is also maybe commenting too about his approach and his viewpoint on what the nature of his freedom is and what it is he's seeking next in his life, and how that may or may not have to do directly with his mother. And so we have already this consonant dissonant, consonant slash dissonant dynamic between mother and son on full display. And sometimes too, we have again the pair of them or the two of them together, but oftentimes too in the film we see them in their own separate worlds, and their worlds are, I think, arguably, while there could be said to be similarities between the two, there are also arguably quite different. We have the world of the mother, and Vinya, and we see sometimes her sort of station in life as well, and we see her inhabiting what might be described as being different or multiple roles. In terms of her work life and her workstation, also her role vis-a-vis her son who is growing up, and we see her sort of place in society, and maybe that have some gleanings or indications of a class background. And also her personality too, a kind of very, I think, memorable and engaging personality that may or may not always be aware of various, say, generational changes that might be happening before her very eyes, but she is not aware of it, or is she? And perhaps that very sense of detection and that very sense of discovery might be one of the ways in which this film is thus injected with a sense of quiet and maybe subtle and maybe quite noble sadness and regret, and also maybe an inability to understand, again, this idea of generational connections or also generational divides, and that directly is resonant, or it's directly resonant in terms of her relationship with her son. And when she discovers what her son wants to do, and specifically what her son wants to do with respect to the absent father, the father who is not present, and the father who is somewhere else, and what this means for not just her livelihood, but also her perception of the mother-son relationship, but also what that might be reflective of in terms of his, as I say, coming-of-age story. How this has potentially devastating and shattering consequences for her, but what does it say about the young son? What does it say about this young boy who seeks to perhaps find a new life or have a new life with his other parent? Again, the present absent father. And this is another interesting, abstract and very maybe fragmented, brilliantly fragmented way in which Muratova guides us in terms of expressing the father-son dynamic and even the relationship between the three of them, and maybe also a kind of rivalry between mother and then the father on the other hand, and this interesting way in which that is maybe commenting on, or perhaps even displacing, a sense of domesticity. And there's this very famous way in which photos are being projected onto walls of the house, and the photos are representing the father, the present absent father, and the yearning of the son to be with his father over his mother. And so that has a kind of almost dissonant commentary on this sense of a almost plastique type of domesticity that seems to be on display when we see the decor and ambience and environment of the living quarters of mother and son, and particularly how it expresses the mother's, say, character and personality. But also perhaps too how that might be very close to, or perhaps even far removed from where the son seems to find himself, both maybe emotionally and spiritually. So this, I think, engaging play with environments and pictures and almost like mirrors on a wall that have these jagged edges, while at the same time shifting between and among the dynamics of perspective between the mother's perspective and the son's perspective, and their own, say, mini character arcs and subplots that happen in order to sort of punctuate their own lives and livelihoods, while at the same time keeping us inherently interested in the core the core, say, soul of the film, which is the mother-son relationship on a precipice, and what will happen to that, and will it survive, if anything, as the film reaches its conclusion. And in that way, it is very much a kind of, it has a certain degree of suspense and sadness. There's also a sense of a type of contemplation, because while I mentioned that there are certain subplots of the mother story and the son story, there's also the sense of the film allowing us to meditate on the various, say, multi-perspective composures of our characters. And so, and this is one of the things that when you get to the supplements, we'll understand that this was cited as being one of the reasons for the Long Farewells being shelved by government. Soviet Union not being permitted for public release due to certain cited reasons. I think one of which is, as mentioned in the supplements, being this notion of a film that doesn't seem to be telling, quote unquote, a traditional story with a beginning, middle, and an end, and also a story that seems to be almost maybe even poking fun or perhaps criticizing the role of the quote unquote liberated woman, end quote, sort of maybe almost criticizing this idealized notion of gender equality, when remembering and recognizing the sort of emotional frailty of and how the mother is being depicted here. But I think that might be just one way of viewing it, and perhaps a more with releases like this, we as viewers in 2024 can look at a film like The Long Farewell and see it for what perhaps might have been intended, which is maybe, and one way of looking at it is a very, I think, stark, sometimes maybe cruel set of circumstances that also aims to showcase or reflect just how our characters are acting and reacting with and to each other, how certain relationships are destined to either succeed or crumble before our very eyes. There is, again, this notion of expectations along gender lines, also expectations along generational lines that seem to, again, either be a constant or perhaps they will crumble before our very eyes, depending on the winds of the sort of the feelings of our characters as we find them, and also to fragments of their lives that may or may not have a direct interconnectivity with the quote unquote plot of the film, right? The film allows itself to breathe and allows itself and gives us the room to know these characters in these moments that may or may not have a quote unquote direct through line with an ABC type of plot. Not to say that they are irrelevant. They are very relevant, but they are showcasing, again, what one might say to be a multi-perspective approach to telling a certain, say, place of character in a given moment in time, or given moments in times. Again, showcasing the way in which Muratova is able to balance shifting perspectives and spaces and time seemingly within a moment of film, which is utterly genius. So this type of ability to show us the personalities of the characters and the varying perspectives of characters, not just the varying perspectives from varying characters, but even differing perspectives within the same character themselves, I think is one of the dynamic aspects of this film, The Long Farewell. It is truly captivating, and I think it, I I love how, and I don't want to sound like I don't want to sound demeaning, because far from it. This is 100% praiseworthy. I love how the film has a kind of linear plot on the one hand, but at the same time, it is also in a wonderful way almost plotless, because it allows us to again engage with various perspectives, rather than necessarily be almost dictated by a kind of ABC type of plot. Not to say that there's anything wrong with a type of a linear storytelling structure, like an ABC type of plot, but I don't think that's at least from my perspective, that's the way for me to engage with The Long Farewell. Rather, it's my way to see how the characters are ignited by, again, the fragmented nature of various feelings that can change depending on who they're with or the moments that they are sharing with certain people here versus other people there, and how they might have perspectives that can converge or diverge. Depending on what their feelings are. And nowhere is this more fully realized in this film, The Long Farewell, than in the relationship between mother and son and father, etc. So this family dynamic is on full display in this again brilliantly rendered film. This is another example of the genius of Muratova, and the fact that this was so inaccessible for so many years is a kind of tragedy on the one hand, but now that it's being rediscovered, it was rediscovered some years ago, and then now it's being rediscovered or re-emerging thanks to releases around the world, such as the Criterion Collection release. So this film, and it's mentioned in some of the supplements and also elsewhere as being one of the great films. It could be, for many people, the greatest film by Muratova. And for wonderful reason. It has a wonderful poetic abstract quality that is poetically that's so beautiful in almost in its inscrutability. And yet it is so understandable at the same time, because it's dealing with these fundamental feelings and frustrations and yearnings that have this, that again, externally imposed expectations on the one hand, and these internal workings, these yearnings that again may or may not be congruent with the external world, may or may not be congruent with what it is we are actually wanting, and that is either a source of triumph or tragedy, or happiness or sadness, or maybe somewhere in the middle when we watch a film like The Long Farewell. Oh, so human and oh, so beautiful is this film. This is a brilliant, masterful work of art from Kira Muratova, and it is a film which is The Long Farewell.